Why even bring it
No,
up?
why don't
Why
you be
even bring up
honest?
martial law?
No, you know, your problem is you're just one of those liars on television. And people hate it. They can't stand the liars on television.
I'm not the one saying I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall.
Quote the supposed text message. Quote it. What does it say? I don't know
Well,
those things.
If you want to hang on, let's
read it out loud.
Let's read it. Okay,
Why don't
let's
you
take
be
a look.
honest for once?
Let's take a
read
look.
it out loud.
Jim Acosta, a name synonymous with high-tension White House press briefings and fiery on-air debates, has been a mainstay at CNN for well over a decade. From radio beginnings to becoming the network's chief White House correspondent, Acosta earned a reputation as a relentless questioner, often the focal point of political controversies. His clashes with Donald Trump became legend, raising his public profile and, for a time, cementing his status as a polarizing figure in cable news. But the same fearlessness that put him on the map is now tied to his exit from CNN. As rumors swirled of a major newsroom shakeup, many questioned, would Acosta adapt or would he walk away? The decision has been made and it's official. Jim Acosta is out. Join us as we look at the full story. Jim's meteoric rise. Jim Acosta's career begins in radio. After studying mass communication in college, he took a job at WMAL in Washington, D.C. His transition to television came in the mid-1990s, starting as a desk assistant for the local Fox affiliate, WTTG-TV. Within a few years, Acosta moved to Knoxville's WBIR-TV as a reporter and substitute anchor, invaluable training ground that set him up for bigger roles ahead. During his formative TV years, Acosta bounced among notable stations, Fort Worth's KTVT and Chicago's WBBM, before landing at CBS News. There, he covered the 2004 John Kerry presidential campaign and reported on significant national events like the Iraq War and the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. In 2007, Acosta joined CNN. His timing was impeccable. He stepped into an era of increasingly fierce political discourse and around-the-clock coverage of election cycles. It wasn't long before Acosta rose through the ranks. He reported extensively on the 2008 Obama and Clinton campaigns, often anchoring CNN's weekend political segments. By 2012, he was promoted to national political correspondent, eventually becoming the network's senior White House correspondent. His questioning style, unflinching and direct, grew both praise and criticism. Colleagues noted that Acosta had an uncanny knack for pressing political figures on contentious issues. Viewers, in turn, found him either refreshingly bold or frustratingly confrontational. Acosta's star power expanded further when he covered President Obama's historic trip to Cuba in 2016, cornering Cuban President Raul Castro on his country's human rights record. The same fearless demeanor carried over when he covered the Trump administration, thrusting Acosta into the spotlight like never before. From that point on, his brand became tied to rapid-fire questioning, big headlines, and a sense of dogged determination that defined his time at CNN. Showdowns in the White House briefing room.
There will be several White House officials at the rally tomorrow.
Will those officials, or will you be there, for example?
I will be there.
Will you and other White House officials be wearing masks at the rally?
It's a personal choice. I won't be wearing a mask. I can't speak for my colleagues.
And why won't you wear a mask? Is it sort of a personal political statement? Is it because the president would be disappointed in you if you don't wear a mask?
It's a personal decision. I'm tested regularly. I feel that it's safe for me not to be wearing a mask, and I'm in compliance with CDC guidelines, which are recommended but not required.
For many Americans, Jim Acosta's defining moments came during the Trump administration. While Donald Trump had sparred with plenty of reporters, his confrontations with Acosta were particularly explosive. At a May 2016 press conference, Trump famously called Acosta a real beauty, mocking his line of questioning and CNN's coverage. By January 2017, Acosta found himself in the crosshairs again, labeled fake news, when he attempted to ask about Russia during a press conference. The drama didn't stop there. In August 2017, Acosta had a heated exchange with White House advisor Stephen Miller over the RAISE Act, a contentious immigration proposal. Many news outlets described Acosta as CNN's chief antagonist to the Trump administration, a role both revered and criticized. Soon after, he repeatedly clashed with White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders over the administration's treatment of the press. One of the biggest flashpoints occurred in November 2018. During a post-midterm election press conference, Acosta tried to follow up on questions about immigration rhetoric. President Trump told him that's enough, and an intern reached to take back the microphone. The confrontation escalated, with the White House accusing Acosta of placing hands on the intern. Acosta was promptly barred from the White House grounds, his press pass revoked. CNN pushed back, calling the move retaliatory. The ensuing dispute, centered around a purportedly doctored video circulated by the White House, turned into a legal showdown. Ultimately, Acosta's credentials were restored after CNN filed a lawsuit arguing his First and Fifth Amendment rights had been violated. The legal victory solidified Acosta's image as a combative reporter willing to stake his own career on the principles of press freedom. His brand became inextricably linked with the Trump battles, making him a hero to some and a symbol of media arrogance to others. A changing CNN landscape.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me.
After the 2020 elections and the swearing in of President Biden, CNN opted to reorganize its talent lineup. Jim Acosta was elevated to chief domestic correspondent in January 2021, and he began anchoring weekend shows. During that period, CNN was in a state of flux, juggling new leadership and shifting strategies. The network, once laser-focused on Trump coverage, began readjusting to a different political atmosphere. By late 2024 and early 25, rumblings of significant internal changes grew louder. Mark Thompson had taken the reins as CNN's CEO with a mandate to optimize the channel's resources and push harder into digital. Rumors circulated that some anchors might be offered new time slots, even those considered big network veterans. One of the prime targets was Jim Acosta, then anchoring a 10 a.m. Eastern show that commanded decent viewership. In January 2025, CNN unveiled a sweeping programming update. Wolf Blitzer and Pamela Brown would co-anchor The Situation Room during an expanded morning block, effectively removing Acosta's show from the daytime schedule. The replacement plan for Acosta was controversial, a midnight to 2 a.m. slot designed to capture a West Coast audience and feed into international coverage. Insiders described the move as either an out-of-the-box opportunity or a significant downgrade. Facing the possibility of retreating from a coveted morning slot to a late-night show, Acosta weighed his options. Ultimately, he declined the overnight opportunity, leaving many staffers wondering if CNN's leadership hoped he would do exactly that. Aftermath and future possibilities. The news of Acosta's exit spread swiftly. Some called it a firing, while others suggested it was a choice. Regardless, the end result was the same. Jim Acosta was leaving CNN. In statements to various media outlets, unnamed sources hinted that executives stood ready to keep him, but on terms that Acosta found unappealing. The anchor, known for challenging presidents on live television, wasn't going to fade quietly into the overnight ether. Industry speculation about his next chapter is rampant. In an era marked by high-profile journalists striking out on their own, Don Lemon, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson, among others, Acosta may launch a similar venture. Several journalists have turned to subscription-based newsletters or digital platforms that allow them to create content unrestrained by network structures. For Acosta, whose brand rests on investigative digging and accountability reporting, a direct-to-audience approach could be advantageous. CNN's trajectory also aligns with broader shifts in cable news, particularly heading into another presidential election cycle. Networks are analyzing who best fits their evolving brand identity. For many, the focus may lean more towards neutral coverage, albeit still within the boundaries of cable's 24/7 spin. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think Jim Acosta should do next? Let us know in the comments section below.